I started asking to ride when I was just 2 years old. However, because of how young I was, I didn't actually end up getting into lessons until I was 4 years old. I mainly learned to ride on Arabian horses, and eventually I started to show on the Arabian horse breed circuit, mainly in hunter pleasure classes. I started out in the walk-trot ring in 10 and under when I was just 5 years old, oftentimes one of the youngest people in the classes. For the beginning of my show career, I mainly showed an Arabian mare named Sam and a dapple gray Arabian mare named Mariposa. Both of these horses were a large part of teaching me the ropes of the show ring. When I was just 5 years old, I won my first High Point award in the 10 and under division at the end of the year. I got a vest that was way too big for me since the award was traditionally awarded to people much older than myself. Unfortunately, I have since lost the vest, but still have one of the badges that it came with, and it is something that is still very special to me today. I continued to ride and show my trainer's Arabian horses on the Arabian circuit and in local jumper shows. At one show in particular, the gray mare named Mariposa bolted on me in one of our cross rail courses, and it made quite a scene since I was so young at the time. I still remember everyone yelling at me to lean back and pull back, but we ended up finishing our course after she was contained, and that was one of the more memorable moments of my riding career as a child. I was lucky enough to show at events like Region 17 regionals while I was still quite young. This gave me lots of show experience and practice riding in busy warm-up rings at a very young age, and this was something that was super valuable and I think has really helped me as a rider today because I had to get used to high-pressure situations and busy arenas at a very young age. When I was 8 years old, a new horse came to my trainer's barn to be trained and sold. I immediately fell in love with him and absolutely wanted to ride him, but he was only 6 years old and was far too green for me, so my trainer kept telling me no, I could not ride him. Eventually, my trainer went away, and while she was away, her mom took over my lessons. One night, her mom asked me who I wanted to ride for my lesson, and of course, since I wanted to ride him so badly, I said Farley. She did not know that I hadn't ridden him before, so luck was with me and I was allowed to ride him for my lesson that day. Somehow, I didn't die, so after that, my trainer let me ride him because it ended up going better than they thought. And so the rest is history. My parents ended up buying Farley for me, and he ended up being my main competition mount for the rest of my time on the Arab circuit. Farley was very green and was not an easy horse to ride, so it took us quite a while to start becoming a very good team. But once we did, we started doing very well on the Arab circuit, and he was the key to my success on the Arab circuit. We went on to win numerous High Point titles, championships, as well as regional titles, and I am so thankful for him because he taught me so much. He was really quirky and he loved to bolt. He taught me how to be brave, he taught me how to ride, and he was the one who taught me my love for riding green horses. Farley came to me after my dad had a massive stroke and nearly died, and he was a large part of keeping me sane through the hardships in my life. We both retired from the Arab circuit and showing after my family had a lot of our money embezzled, making owning a horse a challenge, let alone showing. So this is when I really started to work extra hard to pay for my horses. I had already started working at 10 years old and was helping out around the barn from then on, but at 13 and 14, I actually went out and got a part-time job while in school so that I could help fund my horse and hopefully keep him even though we were in financial troubles. In the midst of these financial struggles, I was dealing with some high school problems like bullying and being in a toxic relationship, so it ended up with me taking a several month long break from riding, but eventually after we decided to move Farley away from the show barn, I refound my love for riding at a much more low-key barn where we rode solely for pleasure. It was at this barn where I realized the importance of turning horses out through seeing the difference in Farley's temperament after he was turned out full-time. From here, my interest in equine behavior and horses horses from a scientific basis started to grow, and I started to learn more about the general care and maintenance of horses and what they truly needed. This was the start of a big shift in how I viewed myself as a rider and trainer, and I started to move away from the big bits and training shortcuts that were so often overused in the Arabian circuit, and started to view riding on a more less is more basis. This is also how I found my love for bridle-less riding and started to learn more about the training aspects of green horses and starting horses from the ground up. With the guidance of the owner of this barn that I was at, I was lucky enough to get on many of the rescue horses that came through there and help start them under saddle or help further their training if they were already broke. Through watching her and her work with her horses, I learned lots and started to apply that to what I did with my own horses. I was also introduced to off-the-track thoroughbreds through the rescue work of this barn and watching them come into the barn after finishing their time on the racetrack, and this is how I was first introduced them and how I ultimately got my first off-the-track thoroughbred. When a 4-year-old off-the-track thoroughbred mare came into the barn I was at, I finally made the jump that I had been wanting to do for a while to get into the hunter-jumper circuit. I decided to lease Farley out, and I took on this thoroughbred mare to train and rehome. I named the mare Maya, and she was your stereotypical thoroughbred who was super thin-skinned, hot to ride, and likely ulcery. And she taught me a lot, but at the time I really didn't know how to feed thoroughbreds properly and also didn't know a whole lot about riding them off the track. So while we did get her going in a program and rideable off the track, she was definitely not at the standard as I would hold my horses to today because of my lack of experience. And also looking back, I cringe at her weight and the fact that I didn't treat her for ulcers. This was all due to me being naive and not really knowing the proper way to do things. Kept Maya for the summer and showed her a little bit and introduced her to the riding lifestyle before selling her to a home that absolutely adored her. And then shortly after selling her, I found the thoroughbred that taught me the absolute most and really ignited my love for off-the-track thoroughbreds. When I came across the ad for a 5-year-old black thoroughbred gelding on Craigslist, I was immediately in love. I arranged to go see him, fell in love, and somehow managed to work them down to less than half of their initial asking price. And then he came home. His name was Bullet on the track, but I changed it to Dallas pretty much immediately. Dallas was the most kind-hearted and genuinely good thoroughbred that I have ever ridden. He put up with so much, and straight off the track, he was an absolute saint. His personality was so unusual, and I realize that now, and at the time, I think I largely took it for granted and didn't realize how special he was. I would say Dallas was my first heart horse and really the first horse that absolutely ignited my passion for training and made me realize that I had to get into the world of thoroughbreds and retraining them off of the track. He was also the first horse that I bought with my own money, which is a huge source of pride for me because I was only 16 when I got him. I used the money from Maya's sale to purchase Dallas. Maya was given to me for free by my barn owner at the time, something that I am super thankful for and very fortunate for. Dallas was my partner for the better part of 2 years, and he put up with so much and taught me so much. We showed up to the 2-6 jumpers together and had plans to move up. But unfortunately, he slipped in the paddock one day and ended up straining his stifle, an injury that we had figured would heal better than it did, but unfortunately, he developed a permanent hitch in his stride and was better suited as a light riding trail horse or a companion horse. I kept him for several months after rehabbing his injury as a pasture pet, but I found that he was bored and stressed in the field by himself, so ultimately I decided to put him up for sale and start the search for the perfect home for him where he could go out on a large turnout and just be a companion horse or a trail horse. I ended up finding the perfect home for him where he would live out on a large farm with one other horse and basically just be a companion horse or a trail horse for very short rides. He still lives there today and it is truly a phenomenal home. I've gone to visit him a couple times and he is doing fabulous. He is fat and happy, and now he is basically completely retired from doing anything, so has just become a pet. Selling him was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but also one of the best decisions I've made for him, because he is truly in the best place possible for him. Dallas is the first off-the-track thoroughbred that I trained to jump and really taught to do anything past the absolute basics, and he was such a good horse to learn on. I'm so blessed to have had him in my life, and that I lucked out so much with getting literally the perfect off-the-track thoroughbred. Shortly after selling Dallas, I also ended up selling Farley, and Farley is still around today. He's 21 years old and he lives as a lesson horse and is very loved, so I'm really happy for him too. In July, about a month before Dallas went to his new home and his purchase was finalized, I adopted Milo from the SPCA as a 2-year-old. He was definitely not what I was looking for. I was hoping to find something a little older that I could ride right away, but something about him really spoke to me, and so I ended up purchasing him. In the midst of finding a situation for Dallas, I also started to lease an Oldenburg gelding named Doodles, and I started to show in the jumper ring with him. This lease was fairly short-lived because I ultimately realized that my passion was with training and working with green horses, and I ended the lease to find another off-the-track thoroughbred. Prior to me starting my search for an off-the-track thoroughbred, I got the opportunity to ride a friend's Arabian Holsteiner cross gelding, who was an absolutely phenomenal jumper. His name was Jake, and he allowed me to move up in jumping and start to ride some bigger fences. He taught me a lot, and I absolutely loved his way of going, and he is honestly a horse that I definitely would have wanted to buy if money would have allowed it at the time. Unfortunately, after riding him on and off over the course of a few years, he passed away from a tragic accident that resulted in him needing to be euthanized. I still miss this horse today and think about him a lot and what we could have done together if we had been given the opportunity. Sometime in the future, I hope to breed for an Anglo-Arab or another Arabian warm blood cross to hopefully create something that could hold a candle to Jake's talent and personality. In winter of 2014, I found my next off-the-track thoroughbred. A 4-year-old thoroughbred mare who had a very poor race record. I got her for $350 and got her as a project to retrain and sell eventually. She was one of the sweetest mares ever, and I really enjoyed my time with her. Her name was Sydney, and she was a lot more work than the other thoroughbreds that I'd gotten off the track, as she had a lot more quirks that needed to be worked out and had a lot of anxiety in relation to stalling and being tied that I needed to deal with. So she tested my boundaries as a trainer and taught me a lot. Eventually, I sold Sydney to a home where she would train to be an event horse. She lived there for several years and was very well loved. After selling Sydney, I focused on Milo and preparing him to be started under saddle. Milo is a horse that has absolutely defined my career as an equestrian. I have dedicated numerous videos to my personal journey in working with him, as well as his journey in his growth as a horse. So I'm not going to go into as much detail with him in this video, but I will link the videos specific to him down below. I started Milo to ride as a 3-year-old, and he was the first of my personal horses that I started under saddle myself. I learned a lot through doing this and was really happy with the outcome. He was one of the easier horses for me to start, which was surprising considering how silly he had been in the past. After spending the summer riding Milo and getting him more used to being a riding horse, I ended up getting another thoroughbred project off of the racetrack. This time I bought one largely off of looks and decided to get him even after he had injured himself when I was on my way to go pick him up. Something that I view now as a mistake from a resale standpoint, as it's hard to make money if you have to funnel a lot of money into vet bills. Out of all of the thoroughbreds that I've gotten off of the track, Rabbit definitely had the most baggage, and he also raced for the longest. So unfortunately, he never ended up being safe enough for my mom to ride as I had hoped. So I ended up selling him to a new home after about 10 months of having him. A large portion of that he had off because of his injury. He still taught me a lot about handling difficult thoroughbreds as well as how to budget better when buying sales horses. In 2016, I started contacting racing farms in hopes of finding somewhere that would teach me how to gallop. I contacted my now current boss and was turned down on the basis that I hadn't learned how, and they didn't want to train someone. Eventually, I got an old friend of my mom's from high school to teach me how to gallop on some of his racehorses, but unfortunately, after only riding for him a few short times, he injured himself and could no longer train me. Luckily, the lady who had initially turned me down for training took me on and decided that she would teach me how to gallop. She told me that they generally only take 1 out of every 10 riders that they try to train because a lot of people don't catch the knack of galloping. I was determined to be that 1 in 10. Although on my very first horse, I was bolted on and ran the horse right off the racetrack, somehow she still kept me on to train, and eventually I did pick it up and got the knack of galloping. And the rest is history. I still work for the same boss and am very passionate about thoroughbreds on and off the track. Galloping them as racehorses has taught me a lot about restarting them after their racing careers and has only served to better my abilities to get these horses into new careers after they retire. I work as a gallop rider and I also market the horses after retirement, working to find them new homes as sport horses. Galloping racehorses has taught me the importance of fitness in riding, as well as teaching me how to handle all sorts of shenanigans from rearing, bronking, to bolting. Thus, it has made me a much braver rider, and it really solidified my decision to go professional in the horse world. In the fall of 2016, I got another thoroughbred gelding off of the racetrack. He was a 2-year-old gelding, and I gave him the rest of the winter off to grow up, and then decided to start him under saddle again in the spring. His name was Archie, and he was one of the quietest thoroughbreds that I'd ever owned, and I'm really proud of my work with him. I got Archie as a sales project, so did end up selling him this past year after really getting him bomb-proof and starting him over fences, and he is now owned by one of my trainers and is still with her. Between 2016 and 2018, I was also riding and helping start and train horses for friends and acquaintances, but not from a professional standpoint. It wasn't until the beginning of 2018 that I decided to declare as a professional and start charging for my services and advertising myself as a professional. 2018 was a really big year for me learning-wise. I had been the head gallop rider for the last couple of years at the farm that I worked at, and I was also helping break horses for clients and expanding my client load throughout the year. I landed a sponsorship with Back on Track Canada, which was one of the highlights of my 2018 year, and I also started training with a new dressage coach who has been influential in my role as a professional and my growth as a rider. This new focus on dressage has really improved my riding and training abilities and allowed me to produce horses that are more consistent in all aspects of riding. In August of 2018, I landed a job with someone that I used to work with in the past, the mother of the trainer that taught me how to ride, and I started training a lot of her green and young horses, which are Arabians and warm blood types, and working with bringing them back into a program. This allowed me about 8 new client horses, which made me extremely busy, but I still had other clients who I was starting horses for or refreshing horses back into a program or teaching them how to jump, along with going to school and pursuing a degree in journalism and English in university. The 2018 show season was mine and Milo's most successful season. He got division champion or reserve champion in every division that he showed in when we went to show series, or at the Southlands Jumper Show, he ended division champion in one of his divisions and reserve champion in the other. So that was very exciting, especially with the confidence issues and whatnot that we had in the past with him. In September of 2018, I rescued 2 ponies from slaughter, one who was completely feral and absolutely terrified of people when we got him, and the other who had been handled nicely. Now I have the feral pony going under saddle and comfortable with people, and I'm going to be starting the other pony soon as she is younger than him, so we have been taking it much slower with her. This has been very exciting and is definitely something that I want to continue to do in the future because it allows me to help horses who need it and take on some really cool project horses. I've also started working for my dressage coach, riding some of his young horses and getting them into a program, and I've been learning lots and bettering myself as a rider through the guidance of him. And more recently, I got another off-the-track thoroughbred, a gelding that I actually used to gallop while he was still racing. His name is George, and I intend to take him to the 2019 Thoroughbred Makeover Project should we be accepted. So 2019 is going to be a very big year for me. I'm really excited. I'm excited about all of the companies and brands that I've been working with, and I'm excited about having a full client load and being able to continue to expand my business as time allows. So here's a reminder to all of you who want to get into the horse world professionally. While it is hard to do it without a lot of financial backing, it is totally possible, and this is what I have done for myself, and I'm doing quite well work-wise and financially. I make good money doing what I'm doing, and I have gotten lots of clients, and I'm excited to see where this continues to go, and I'm excited to show client horses this year in the 2019 show season. Thank you so much for following my journey and for believing in me. My hope is that I can continue expanding my training program to start offering things like lessons to other people, as well as getting in more sales horses for myself and for clients.